Hello, I'm James Preston for Kalkine Media, and welcome to another edition of Executive Corner Expert Talks. In this edition, I'll be shining a light on Black Canyon Resources, and the best way to do that is to sit down with the Executive Director at the company, Brendan Cummins. And Brendan, thank you so much for joining me here today.
Yeah, g'day James. Good to catch up with you again and give a bit of an update to the company's progress over the last 12 months.
Yeah, absolutely. And first and foremost, Brendan, for those who aren't familiar with Black Canyon Resources, what exactly does your company focus on?
Oh, look, we were listed as a IPO in May 2021, and since then, we're an explorer, primarily focused on manganese. We're not looking for any other commodities; it's just manganese, and we've been really fortunate that we made a significant discovery last year, and that's been the basis of the work. A lot of the work we did through 2022, and so there's a lot going on. Certainly a lot more happening in 2023 as well.
Yeah, we'll get to that discovery in just a moment. But first and foremost, take me through the joint venture with Carawine. Now, how significant is that?
Oh, look, it's like a lot of earning joint ventures when they're struck. The original deal was Black Canyon. We spent $4 million over a 5-year period to earn 75% in the projects. The projects being exploration tenements, which cover about 800 square kilometres of the Eastern Pilbara, so a very large chunk of ground. So we've actually spent $4 million now, but we've done it in about 18 months. And so that probably reflects the significance of the discovery at Flanagan Bore and the work programs that are associated with moving that one through from resource delineation through to project development. So we're really entering a feasibility stage now, so our expenditure is only going to go up from here. But what it means is, it's secured us 75% of the projects now, Flanagan Bore, and then ultimately, at the end of the day, we build a mine there. We have 75% of the revenues that come out of that as well. So, and we've got a really excellent joint venture partner, Carawine Resources. They've been really good, and that they are going to contribute that 25% going forward. So, yeah, it's a really strong arrangement between the two companies.
It does sound like a very good match, but let's focus specifically on Flanagan Bore. And obviously 2022 was a massive year for that project. Could you take us through the mineral resource estimate, the scoping, and any of the other major developments from Flanagan Bore?
Yeah, so I'm sort of trying to cast my mind back to 2022, and it all started actually in the December 2021 when we did quite a large drill program. And at that point, I think, I was on the rig as well, so I saw the drill trips and I got pretty excited. So I figured we were onto something fairly early. So through the course of the first quarter, we started to get those results back, and we announced a discovery of Flanagan Bore probably in about February, which was the FB3 deposit. Never been drilled before. And then as we worked through and waited for the exploration results to come through, or the assays results, and put the geology together, we announced 104 million tonnes at 10.5%, which by all accounts is a pretty decent first crack at it. It's going from zero to that amount of resource in one drill program has been an outstanding result for the company. And then sort of moving on from there, we did that scoping study. So that was also so I guess investors need to understand a scoping study is a low-level technical and economic assessment of the deposit. It has accuracy limits of about 35%, so plus or minus 35%. So it's really the initial stage when you start to assess a project as to whether it could be viable. And we were really pleasantly surprised by the outcome of that scoping study as well. So I could probably touch on that in a bit more detail later, but once we realised that we do have something that could be worth a lot of money and a lot of value in the ground, we embarked on a second round of drilling. That was in May and June. Got those results back and then upgraded that mineral resource from 104 million tonnes to 171 million tonnes at 10.3% manganese. So another big step up, and it certainly puts us amongst the size and probably in terms of grade range, probably a little bit above some of our competitors as well. So that was another big milestone for the company in 2022, sorry. And excuse me. And then we've jumped straight into metallurgical test work on those materials as well, looking at how we can recover the manganese out of that material, out of the ore. I should add that the mineral resources now are majority of measured resources. So in terms of JORC classification, measured is the highest quality resource, the most confidence. And that really reflects the deposit. We've drilled it on a 100 by 100 metre spaced drill pattern, which is quite broad, but what we are seeing is really good continuity geologically and also in terms of grade distribution across the deposits. They're big, kilometre by kilometre type deposits, so very large deposits. And that really bodes well for mining and processing in the future, because a very consistent, homogeneous deposit is predictable. And then when you set up your processing plant, putting in a predictable feed, potentially means a predictable concentrate at the back end. So that'll be what we're working on. That is one of the things in 2023. And then also manganese sulfate. The battery boom's not going away. Every day you're reading more and more about how this is growing and people's interest in owning electric vehicles. The market is growing significantly. So with the concentrates that we can generate from Flanagan Bore and from other manganese oxide deposits probably across our portfolio, to be able to produce manganese sulfate that can feed into the battery gigafactory world would also be a really, it's one of the outcomes we're hoping for 2023 as well.
I understand you recently did some test work at Flanagan Bore with the discovery that there was the potential to produce a high purity manganese compound. Now, how significant is that? And overall for the company, is that a massive development for you guys, or is that sort of more par for the course, if you will?
Oh, look, we see it as a complementary process. At Flanagan Bore, for example, we're looking at a long life mine, 20-year mine life. We need to get that into production, and we need to run through the approvals for that. That's a couple of years out. So the primary product that gets produced from Flanagan Bore will be a manganese concentrate. Now, most of that's going to feed into the steel industry. That's where most manganese concentrate goes to, but we're also looking at carving out a proportion of that and producing manganese sulfate. So the significance of that is recently some of our peers have announced deals with car manufacturers and battery manufacturers. So I think slowly the penny's starting to drop that everyone's after lithium, no question about that. The second cab off the rank has been nickel and cobalt. Manufacturers looking to secure safe supplies of that, but manganese is starting to get on the radar now. So it's really playing well to our overall strategy of being a supplier to the steel industry, but also being able to develop a flow sheet that can produce manganese sulfate from across our tenement portfolio. So that's really one aspect of the company that I think is set to probably blossom as well over the next 12 months as we just further develop the projects.
We've talked about lithium there as being the key one, and then nickel and cobalt, but obviously manganese is right up there as well. How big is the potential market for manganese, and is it likely to grow or shrink into the future?
Oh, look, the chemistries for batteries is evolving, and there's two aspects of it. So within China, most of these battery minerals are sourced globally, but they end up in China. They're manufactured or processed into battery products. And then they make the batteries, they make the cars. So that sort of makes a bit of sense. A lot of it happens in China, but you've got Europe and the US sort of needing to catch up now. So they want to make their own materials and secure their own supply chains internally, rather than having to rely on other countries to supply that to them. So that's probably one factor that plays well for Australia. We do have all these commodities right here in Australia, a lot of them in WA, which is very fortunate. So we can see a battery industry certainly burgeoning here in WA. So the US, with that Inflation Reduction Act as well, also they're looking to encourage battery manufacturing in the US as well. So in a way, it's kind of sidestepping and sidestepping current supply issues, but also looking at developing a whole new battery industry in the US, which is a massive market as well. And I'm sure the uptake, very similar to Australia, is going to be high in the US as well once infrastructure is all established. So that's one aspect to it. In terms of growth potential, I look at all the data supplied through various consultancies, and they're seeing a 10 times uplift in requirement for manganese between now and the end of 2030, 2035. So that's a significant amount of manganese that needs to be produced. And they actually predict that it needs to come from outside of China as well to support the manufacture globally across the US and Europe. And thirdly, the technology for these batteries is evolving. So you've got the nickel, manganese, cobalt batteries, which tends to be a bit of an accepted platform these days. But what's emerging is lithium iron phosphate with manganese, so LFMP batteries. And that's a new one. And they'll be going into cheaper vehicles or bulk storage that you might have in your home. And the beauty of adding manganese to that current chemistry is that it increases the energy density, but also at a small cost. You don't need to add nickel, it's just manganese, so it is a cheaper option. And also sodium batteries, another bulk storage technology that is coming into play, and they also have a significant component of manganese as well. So I just love reading about these different batteries that are coming to the market, and when they're coming to the market, and it's imminent. These things are happening. They're designing the batteries now into production and manufacturing over the next 2 years, and that's also suits quite well with our timing in terms of being there to supply that manganese sulfate into the future.
Now, I can just imagine the new Energizer Bunny ads that would be popping up these days. It literally would continue for hours and hours before we could even get the 30-second commercial kind of going. So it's a very interesting space how far the technology has advanced.
But yeah, shouldn't ignore actually alkaline batteries. There's a significant amount of manganese in alkaline batteries as well, which is just your stock standard. Kids put them in toys all over the world, and there's still quite a lot of demand for manganese just through that as well.
So Brendan, what are your goals for 2023 with Black Canyon Resources?
Yeah, I can sort of break it down to a couple of aspects for 2023. Exploration, we're still an explorer. We've got 2,500 square kilometres of tenure up there in the Eastern Pilbara. 800 square k's is in joint venture, and the rest of it is 100% owned by Black Canyon. So we'll be spending money on those tenements and potentially making new discoveries. We also know that we've done preliminary mapping across those and geochemistry, so we do have targets that we want to follow up. So we will be doing some drilling and further exploration on those targets. Flanagan Bore, which is really the flagship project at this stage, is really working through that feasibility work. So that involves getting that net test work right to ensure that we can produce a consistent concentrate from the materials on site. And in parallel, running through the approvals process, starting all those environmental baseline studies, the ESG component for the projects as well, which is really important because we did lodge a mining license application over the project in November last year. So that to get that through the approvals process and the regulators, that's probably a good 12 month 12 months doing baseline studies and then the approval process through there. So we'll be kicking off that. But with the high purity manganese sulfate as well, looking at that across the portfolio and just seeing how we can develop our flow sheet to produce battery grade high purity manganese sulfate. So yeah, we do have a pretty full 12 months ahead of us. So it'll be more of the same. And we're a pretty small team as well, and we're quite nimble, so we can also react to markets and so forth. But we had a fantastic 2022, and I guess I dare say it'll be another big one in 2023.
No, there's no doubt about it. I know how you guys operate. You're very cost effective and cost efficient, so it should be an incredible year for you. And Brendan, it's been great to chat, but just before I let you go, any final thoughts you'd like to leave with our audience and your shareholders?
Oh, look, I think we are really showing value in the workflows that we're processing through the company. I hate to say ticking the boxes, but that's what you do need to do with project developments, and we are working our way through those as well. So we are really one of those companies that we do what we say we're going to do and we go ahead. So, and I think 2022 is testament to that. What we've set out to achieve, we've achieved, and now 2023 is a whole new year ahead of us, and we'll be just continuing on, going further and stronger in the next 12 months.
Incredible, Brendan. I wish you all the best of success with Black Canyon Resources. Thank you so much for your time.
I appreciate it. Thanks, James.
That's Brendan Cummins, the Executive Director at Black Canyon Resources. And if you missed any part of that chat, you can catch the full interview on our YouTube channel, Kalkine Media. So make sure to subscribe. I'm James Preston, reminding you to stay apprised and invest wise with Kalkine Media.